All right, everybody, buckle up, because today we're diving deep into something really, really cool.
Oh, I like where this is going. Lay it on me.
So picture this, a fighter jet. But not just any fighter jet. One so advanced it can basically vanish into thin air. And to make it even cooler, it can fly missions all on its own.
Okay, you have my attention. Sounds like we're talking about the stuff of sci-fi movies here.
We might be closer than you think. We're talking about the nEUROn. It's Europe's answer to the future of air power.
Right, the nEUROn. I've been wanting to dig into this one. Stealth tech, unmanned flight, the works. Where do we even start?
Well, lucky for us, we've got Dassault Aviation's own website as our guide for this deep dive.
Dassault Aviation. You're talking European aviation royalty right there. They pretty much wrote the book on military aircraft.
Exactly. So we're in good hands with this source material.
All right, so before we get lost in the weeds on this thing, why should this even matter to anyone listening?
Because it's not every day we get a glimpse into the future of warfare. Exactly. And the nEUROn gives us just that. This isn't just about a fancy new plane. This project hints at how wars might be fought in the future, what happens when countries team up on massive tech projects, and maybe even forces us to ask some tough ethical questions we'll definitely be getting into later.
Sounds like we've got a lot to unpack. Let's do it.
Let's do it. So, first things first, what exactly is the nEUROn? Dassault calls it a technology demonstrator, which I'll admit sounds a bit technical at first.
Yeah, a bit. How would you describe it?
Basically, it's like a super high-tech experiment in the sky. The idea wasn't to pump out a whole fleet of these things right away. It was to see if they could pull off all this bleeding-edge tech in the first place.
That makes sense. You know, when you think of stealth aircraft or those unmanned drones that pilot themselves, you usually picture...
big players, right?
Exactly. Big, well-funded militaries taking the lead. So the fact that a group of European nations got together and said, hey, we can do this too, that's kind of a big deal, shows they were serious about staying in the game.
Absolutely. They knew air power was changing fast, and they wanted to be at the forefront. But like you said earlier, the stuff is straight out of a sci-fi movie. So what were some of the hurdles they had to clear to even get this thing off the ground?
Well, for starters, they had to completely rethink aircraft design.
Like from the ground up?
Yeah, like starting with a blank sheet of paper. I mean, imagine trying to build a plane practically invisible to radar. You can't exactly follow the old blueprints for that.
Right. Stealth tech is on a whole other level. It's not like slapping some radar-absorbent paint on there and calling it good.
Not at all. We're talking about coming up with completely new shapes, using special materials, the whole 9 yards.
And on top of that, it had to be crazy strong to handle supersonic speeds, but still light enough to actually get off the ground.
It's like finding the perfect balance between a feather and, well, a jet fighter. And then on top of all that, you've got the whole stealth factor itself.
Which is a whole other can of worms. We're not just talking radar here. They also had to figure out how to hide it from those infrared sensors. You know, the ones that pick up heat?
Oh yeah, those tricky stuff.
So you've got this need for completely new materials, new design, and it has to be practically invisible to two entirely different detection methods. And if that wasn't enough, there's one more thing. This thing had to be able to fly itself. And I don't just mean maintaining altitude or following a pre-programmed flight path. We're talking about making decisions in the air, reacting to threats without a pilot constantly pulling the strings.
Right, so we're talking serious AI here, algorithms that can process information and make judgment calls in real time. That's a whole lot of trust to put in a computer.
For sure. That means incredibly advanced algorithms and a suite of sensors all working together in perfect harmony. It's mind-boggling, really.
And you know what else is mind-boggling? How do you even begin to test something like this? It's supposed to be top secret, practically invisible. So how do you know if it actually works?
That's where those super secret test flights came in. And believe me, these weren't your average test runs.
Oh, I bet. What did they do? Fly it around in circles over the desert, hoping nobody noticed.
More like pitting it against simulated radar systems and heat-seeking missiles.
Whoa, hold on. So they were basically throwing everything they had at it.
Yep. This thing was playing a high-stakes game of hide-and-seek with some of the most sophisticated detection tech out there and winning. But those tests weren't just about showing off.
Right. They had to make sure this thing could hack it in a real combat scenario.
Yeah.
Or at least as realistic as they could make it.
And it did more than just avoid detection. The nEUROn was able to pick out and identify targets on the ground all on its own, like it had eyes of its own.
Okay, now that's impressive. So it could disappear from enemy radar and pick out targets without a human pilot. Anything else?
Oh, yeah. Remember how we were talking about how Dassault had to rethink how they even designed a plane to make the nEURon stealthy?
Yeah, because traditional designs just weren't going to cut it in the age of stealth.
Exactly. Well, one of the biggest things that compromises stealth on an aircraft is something that might seem pretty basic. The weapons.
You mean like how they're attached to the plane?
Bingo! Having weapons hanging off the wings might look cool in a movie montage.
Yeah, very Top Gun.
Right. But for real-world stealth, it's a nightmare. It creates drag, makes the plane easier for radar to spot. It's like putting a giant bullseye on your back.
So how do you fix that? You can't exactly send a stealth fighter jet into battle unarmed.
You can't. That's where Dassault's engineers really got creative. Instead of the usual external hardpoints, they designed the nEURon with something completely different.
Let me guess. An internal weapons bay.
You got it. They tucked it away inside, nice and hidden.
Clever. So now you've got this sleek, almost ghost-like aircraft that can slip past enemy radar, open up its secret compartment, and surprise.
Exactly. This was a game changer, especially for European fighter jets. See, they traditionally relied on carrying weapons externally.
Which, as we've established, isn't exactly ideal if you're going for the whole stealth thing.
Right. But the nEURon, it was a proof of concept. It showed that Europe could build a plane with the potential to sneak past sophisticated air defenses, deliver its payload, and vanish like a phantom.
Okay, so they've got this stealthy design, the internal weapons bay. Did they actually manage to get it to work?
Oh yeah, they did. We're not just talking about dropping bombs here either. During those tests, they proved that the nEURon could launch precision-guided weapons from that hidden compartment. We're talking pinpoint accuracy, hitting targets with a level of sophistication that rivals some of the most advanced combat drones out there. Now, to really grasp the significance of this, we need to understand why this internal weapons bay is such a big deal. And for that, I'm going to toss it over to you.
You see, when a traditional fighter jet carries weapons externally, it's like wearing a big flashing sign that screams, "Here I am, come and get me." You see, when a traditional fighter jet carries weapons externally, it's like wearing a big flashing sign that screams, "Here I am, come and get me." Radar loves those hard, angular shapes hanging off the wings. But with an internal weapons bay, it's like the nEURon can keep its cards close to its chest, so to speak. It becomes this phantom, much harder to detect and track.
Okay, that makes total sense. So it's not just about looking cool, it's about being a much more formidable opponent.
Exactly. And this isn't just some theoretical advantage. Remember those rigorous flight tests we talked about? They weren't just testing the nEURon's ability to fly and avoid detection. They were also about proving that this internal weapon system could actually perform in a realistic scenario. And the results, as you mentioned, speak for themselves.
It's pretty mind-blowing when you think about it. We've covered the tech, the stealth, the weapons, but this wasn't just a one-company show, right? Dassault didn't pull this off solo.
Absolutely not. This was a massive team effort, a real testament to European collaboration. We're talking about major aerospace companies from France, Italy, Sweden, Spain, Greece, and Switzerland, all pooling their expertise and resources. It was a huge undertaking, and honestly, the fact that they pulled it off so successfully is a story in itself.
So what does that tell us about the future of European defense? Is this a sign of things to come?
I think it's a strong indicator. For a long time, European defense has been somewhat fragmented, individual countries pursuing their own projects. But the nEURon demonstrates what's possible when they join forces. It sends a clear message. Europe is ready and capable of playing in the big leagues of advanced military technology.
It's like they realized, hey, if we want to stay ahead of the curve, we need to work together. So, looking beyond the nEURon itself, what's the bigger takeaway here? What does this project tell us about the future of warfare?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And I think the nEURon provides a very tangible glimpse into that future. We're moving into an era where unmanned systems, powered by increasingly sophisticated AI, are going to play a much larger role.
It's both fascinating and a little bit unnerving, wouldn't you say? On the one hand, you have this incredible display of human ingenuity, pushing the boundaries of what's technologically possible. But on the other hand, you've got these machines that are capable of making decisions that could have very real consequences.
It's a double-edged sword, that's for sure. And it's not a conversation we can afford to shy away from.
So if this is where we are now with the nEURon, what does that mean for future generations of aircraft?
Well, if we look at the trajectory of technological advancement, it's safe to say that things are only going to get more advanced, more autonomous, and potentially even more ethically complex. The nEURon, in a way, is a stepping stone, a bold experiment that has opened the door to a whole new world of possibilities.
And challenges, I'd imagine. It's one thing to build a plane that can fly itself, but figuring out the rules of engagement, the ethical considerations, that's a whole other ballgame.
Absolutely. And that's a discussion that needs to involve not just engineers and military strategists, but ethicists, policymakers, and frankly, the public as well. The decisions we make now about how this technology is developed and deployed will have far-reaching implications.
It's like we're on the edge of this whole new chapter in military history where the lines start to blur between human pilots and machines that can practically think for themselves.
It's definitely a brave new world, and the nEUROn program is a perfect example of that. It raises so many questions about the future of warfare, questions we don't have all the answers to yet.
That's what's so fascinating about these deep dives. We get to explore not just the how of these incredible technological leaps, but also the what now. What does it all mean for us?
Exactly. Because these aren't just abstract concepts we're talking about. These technologies have real-world implications. What we're seeing with the nEUROn, it's a glimpse into the future of air power, international collaboration, and this ongoing conversation about the role of autonomous systems in warfare.
So for anyone listening who's about to fire up their sci-fi movie marathon after this, can you blame them? We've gone from stealth tech that sounds like it's straight out of a movie to the very real implications of letting machines make decisions in combat. It's a lot to take in.
It really is. But it's also a powerful reminder that we're not just passive bystanders in all of this. We have a responsibility to engage in these conversations, to ask the tough questions, and to shape how these technologies are developed and used.
You know, it strikes me that the nEUROn program itself is a great example of that. It wasn't just one country saying, we're going to build this incredible technology no matter what. It was a group of nations coming together, pooling their knowledge and resources to achieve something remarkable.
And that spirit of collaboration, that commitment to working together, that's something we need to carry forward as we navigate these uncharted waters.
So to wrap things up, I guess the big question is, where do we go from here? What does the future hold for unmanned aircraft, for European defense, for the very nature of warfare itself?
Those are questions that each of us will have to grapple with as these technologies continue to evolve. But one thing is certain. The nEUROn program has given us a lot to think about.
It certainly has. It's a testament to human ingenuity and a sobering reminder of the challenges and responsibilities that come with it. If you're interested in diving deeper into the world of the nEUROn, we've included some links in the show notes where you can explore Dassault Aviation's website and learn even more about this groundbreaking project. Until next time, keep looking up and keep asking those big questions. It's like we're standing on the edge of this whole new chapter in warfare.
It really is a brave new world out there.
Like, we're getting to the point where the lines get blurry between, human pilots and machines that can practically think for themselves.
No doubt about it. And I think the nEUROn program is a perfect example of that. All of these questions it raises about the future of warfare. We don't have all the answers yet, that's for sure.
And that's what I love about these deep dives.
What's that?
We get to really explore not just the how behind these leaps in technology, but also that what now question.
Right, because it's not enough to just build these incredible things. We have to think about what it all means. For us, for the future, for everything.
Exactly. And these aren't just abstract ideas we're kicking around. These technologies have serious real-world implications.
Absolutely. What we're seeing with this nEUROn project, it's more than just a cool piece of tech. It's a glimpse into the future of air power, how international collaboration can achieve some pretty amazing things, and this whole debate about autonomous systems in warfare that we're only just beginning to have.
I mean, for anyone listening who's about to go put on a sci-fi movie marathon after this,
Can you blame them?
not at all. We've gone from talking about stealth tech that sounds like it's straight out of Hollywood to discussing the very real implications of machines making life or death decisions on the battlefield.
It's a lot to process, but it's also a good reminder, I think,
Of what?
that we're not just along for the ride here. We have a responsibility to be part of these conversations, to ask those tough questions, and to try to shape how these technologies are used. We're not powerless.
And when I think about the nEUROn project itself, it's actually a pretty good example of that.
Also,
This wasn't just one country going, we're building this incredible thing, and that's that. It was a bunch of different nations, each with their own interests and priorities, coming together and saying, this is important enough that we need to do it together, and they managed to make it happen.
it's a good point. That spirit of collaboration, that dedication to working together, that's something we really need to remember, especially as we move forward into this kind of uncharted territory with technology.
Totally agree. So I guess the big question we're left with is this. where do we go from here? What does the future hold for unmanned aircraft? For the future of European defense? For the very nature of war itself?
Those are some big questions. Questions we'll each have to grapple with in our own way, I suppose, as these technologies keep developing. But one thing's for sure, the nEUROn project has given us a whole lot to think about.
It really has. It's a testament to just how much humans are capable of achieving, but also a bit of a reality check about the kind of challenges and responsibilities that come along with that ingenuity. If anyone out there wants to dig a little deeper into the nEUROn, we've got some links for you in the show notes. You can check out Dassault Aviation's website, learn more about the project, maybe even start your own deep dive into this fascinating world of cutting-edge tech. But until next time, keep your eyes on the skies and never stop asking those big questions.